at a time to see it fall. I believe in the power of one person working as a team with other Christian patriots can have massive impact in reversing this ungodly culture. I believe that we have an omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent God that has put his hand on this moment in time to deny the timeline of the enemy and is about to heal our land. This is Rick, your host, and I believe that God has called me to empower Christian patriots with truth. Join us now for the Blessed Teach Show, and let's see what God is doing today.
Do you wake up feeling exhausted and struggle just to keep up? Exit the old you. Step into a new realm of vitality and abundance. The promised land of optimal health is within your reach. Introducing Exodus, a powerful blend of 7 biblically inspired ingredients: organic barley grass, wheatgrass, aloe, saffron, cumin, frankincense, and myrrh, each with centuries of proven, profound healing properties. Exodus also harnesses cutting-edge molecular hydrogen with a healthy inflammatory response and anti-aging effects at the cellular level. Imagine waking up feeling fresh and invigorated with a profound sense of boundless energy, clarity, balance, and inner peace. Don't settle for anything less than your vibrant, God-given best. Experience the Exodus power of transformation risk-free with our 60-day money-back guarantee. Exit the old you today. Your journey begins at tryexodus.com.
Welcome. This is Rick. It's with Blessed Teaching. We're having all kinds of funny technical problems here, but it looks like we're live. We're going to be empowering Christian Patriot Truth the next few hours. After this first hour, we're going to go into praise and prayer. So remember, that's on the new channel, Word and Worship. And then also we have Larry Ballard live here. He's going to be talking about honest election, sovereign borders, and sovereign currency. That's going to be a fun discussion to get into that. I did want to let you know, guys, that that I've been taking the Exodus product, as you know, they muscle tested me 3 times a day. Okay, so what I realize is that people aren't going to be able to afford that, especially when it's $79, $89 a bottle, right? So obviously, if you get into a subscription, it went down to $69. But what we're doing now is we're reducing that significantly in a kind of a one-time offer to see. And if you get a recurring, you'll be able to stick into that, and it can go down to $45 or even lower per bottle. And so some people that like to take this because you want to kick the butt on fatigue, I guarantee you that molecular hydrogen in this product with the 7 biblical ingredients work extremely well. So there's a little TO deal, a Tara Owens deal that we had done that has either 1, 3, or 6 bottles. You could do this with a friend 3 times a day, or you 3 times a day. Guarantee the product's guaranteed. Just go to tryexodus.com. Tryexodus.com. And you guys will be amazed at what you can do. I wanted to get this out of the way before we move to Larry, because we're going to do uninterrupted for probably a full hour. Again, so make sure you go to tryexodus.com. Massively reduced prices if you get in a subscription. And you can cancel anytime. So just try it for 1 month. Get your 3 bottles, right? Take it 2 or 3 times a day. Guarantee results. This is why I do not get tired when I'm preparing for my Bible studies. I do my show notes late at night, and I am not tired. It was transformational for me. Guaranteed. Go to tryexodus.com. Way lower prices for people that are on subscriptions. So go to that, again, from $89 all the way down to half price to get multiple bottles. And so you will love the results. With that, hey, we're going to spend the rest of the time just talking red pill information, talking about truth versus error, because we know this is the deep state against good versus evil. And so I'm just excited to have Larry back on. So Larry, how are you doing today?
It's been good. I don't know if we got enough to talk about though. It's gonna be kind of a slow month, don't you think?
That's for sure. Yeah, I just hope that I just it's weird that at Zoom I don't have one of the screens on, but let me know if everything's going right on Zoom on chat because I am looking at the chat, and I can put chat by the way from Rumble and from backstage on Zoom. So I can put your comments on here as we're going. So we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. If you have questions for Larry as we go, if you have comments on Zoom and or Rumble, I will stick them up here and we'll talk about them. Okay, so we'll make this conversational. It's going to be quite fun. I'm just getting my chat up right now, so I have the chats up and I can actually post them here. So Larry, boy, I tell you, we have there's so much going on. So we talked about honest elections, sovereign borders, sovereign currency. Where do you want to start?
No, you kick it off. You ask me. We'll go
Yeah,
wherever you want to go. It's your show.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing comes up with that we can get into is about the chances of ending the Ukraine war. I know that's top of mind for everybody. President Trump is being criticized that he can't do anything. It doesn't matter what he does. You let Putin come to the United States and in Alaska. What are you doing? You are an idiot. That's what left wing media does the entire time. But there's a lot more to it than just what we see, I believe. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, there's a lot more, a lot more. I mean, you have to look at it from the perspective of the global financial elite rule the world. I know this is hard for people to figure, but you can't look at Russia, Ukraine, the United States, China, any major nation, and consider it that it's autonomous. We've all been taken over by the global financial elite. We've lost our sovereignty. We have a worldwide fiat currency, and basically we are all being puppeted. So when we look at what's happening over there, we have to look at it through the lens of not what's Russia want, not what Ukraine want, not what does the United States want, but what do the global financial elite want? And what they want is they want us to enslave us. And how do they want to do it? In this instance, here's the thing that I think I can bring to the table that other people haven't been talking about. I think we have Putin in a position now where he's leveraged by Trump and wants to have peace. And I think we do also with Kaczynski, but I don't think we do with Europe. So let me break that down. So basically, Russia's got an Achilles heel, and Trump knows exactly what it is. I don't know if your audience has ever heard of something called Dutch disease.
Guts disease.
It goes
No.
way back, but it relates to where we're at today. It was the Dutch when they were the world's reserve currency, and their economy was primarily based on oil. So when you don't have a diversified economy, which is like what America has, you have vulnerabilities. So most of their economy is based on what? Oil and gas. And so if all the other nations of the world wanted to end this, they could join in with America and we could end it very quickly, because basically all they got to do is cut the revenue stream from Putin and the war ends. It's always about money. You've got to have money to fight a war. So whereas Europe, we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, which severed the oil going over to Europe. But nonetheless, what happened? The EU is buying oil from Russia, which gives them money to fight the war. India is buying money from Russia, and so is China buying money from Russia. So that takes us to what Trump has been doing with his tariffs. He's putting leverage on these nations. So the only one that he's really managed to get the right foothold on so far is India. India has agreed to join our tariff agreement. And in doing so, they've made two concessions that are huge that relate to this war. They've agreed to get out of BRICS. And that'll take us to one of the conversations we're going to have later today, which is about the financial reset. And they've also agreed not to buy oil from Russia. So if we'd all get together and say, we want to end this war, if everybody could stop buying the oil from Russia and America would drill, baby, and bring the prices down, the war would end just naturally. But that's not what's happening. So the way I read this, I looked at what was going on when I watched those people's body language. I don't think that China's not involved, but I don't think they want this war to end. Neither do I think that the EU does. So let me break it down for you. So both of those nations, I got to say something that maybe your audience isn't going to appreciate, but I gotta lay it out. We think that Europe is our ally, but if you know history, it was England that we were in servitude to and had to fight a war with to get our freedom. And all of the European nations have basically controlled the world for over 300 years. And that's the Western hegemony that keeps third world countries from having the infrastructure they need to get access to the natural resources. So I think what they'd like to do is just sit back and bleed this war out. And America was basically sending millions, billions of dollars over there to fight that war. So what's Trump done? He's changed the narrative. He said, you want to fight this war? Go ahead and fight it. But if you want to end it, we'll end it. And here's what he's saying. So I'm not going to pay for those implements, for those war supplies anymore. You're gonna pay for them. And what's the bill going to be? Upwards of $1 trillion. So instead of billions flowing out of the United States, now if the EU wants to continue that war, they've got to buy $1 trillion worth of war munitions. And so basically that kind of puts them in a position where they're leveraged to start thinking about making this thing happen. And then we don't think China's involved in this, but China's involved in everything. They got their fingers in absolutely everything. And what they want to do, what people think is, oh, Russia and China are good friends. No, not so. If you go back and know the history, Siberia used to be owned by who? China. And they want to get it back, just like Russia wants to get its stuff back. And Russia's got, on top of everything else I said about oil, it's got another Achilles heel. Look at what's happening in Alaska. And now probably the people know about that. There was a huge tsunami over there from a landslide in one of the fjords, but they probably don't know what's happening over in Siberia. First of all, there's an incursion through settlements into Siberia from the Chinese. And secondly, the permafrost is basically melting. And what's that doing? It is causing a huge problem for Russia, because the railroad lines are buckling and the refineries are 3,000 miles away from Moscow, have all kinds of damage that's happened to them as the permafrost melts. So China is in Russia is in a very vulnerable position. We could leverage all of that and end this war immediately. So I think that they've got Russia and they've got Ukraine to where they want to end. Now what we have to look at is we have to look at what meddling is China going to do and what is the EU going to do. Let me stop there and let you make some comments. And if you got questions from anybody coming in, let them throw it at us. I think that's the essence of what's going on, though.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about what's really going on versus what the optics are, right? And so the fact that that they have continued to buy oil from Russia when they're fighting them, and then they're bleeding out America, paying for it all, that was right in their agenda. Perfect, yeah, right? Now that Trump has cut off the funding and has now controlled the U.S. military and the U.S. economy and ripping that from the elites, now, like you said, the elites are having to fund it. Is that the way you look at that? So if you look at the elites versus we the people?
Absolutely. And let's look at it from yet one last perspective. If the global elite want to control the world, there's one country they got to control. Do I need to ask who it is?
The United States, right? The U.S.
So we are actually in this war, but most Americans don't know it. How and why do I say we're in the war? We're not really over there. We sent a few warplanes and missiles and stuff, but we're in the war because we're in fifth generational warfare. Basically, Russia and Ukraine are part of a bigger picture. And what basically Europe and China are doing is saying, let's bleed America out. Let's make America vulnerable. Let's make them use all of their military armaments. Let's let them drive themselves into debt, and they'll weaken us, and then we can make our move. So behind the scenes, there's that strategy that is a global strategy that people don't even begin to realize is part of what's happening behind the scenes with this Russian-Ukraine war. It's got a secondary objective: bring America to heel financially and weaken it militaristically so that they can basically take over America. And once they do that, they know they can take over the rest of the world. So I know most people haven't been talking about that, but I honestly believe that is a factor in this.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that my audience has heard it for 7 years. I talk about this is not right versus left. This is the cabal versus we the people, and they cannot have a one world government with a United States that is independent and fighting them. Right? They have to destroy the United States. Yeah. So I really believe that's why I joined this battle 7 years ago. And my very first video was like a Rubik's Cube, right? And I was talking about what they want to do is they want to actually put us in all these different boxes, like the red, blue, and white box, and so that we fight, right? So, hey, you're white, you're red, you're blue, you're you're a conservative, you're left, you're black, you're white, you're upper class, you're lower class, and then I have a broken Rubik's Cube, right? Because they just want to destroy the unity of America, right? And that was like one of my first videos I did 7 years ago, and so we're definitely on the same page. And what's interesting is those who followed Q like I did, I reported on every single drop on Q from early 2018. They started in late 2017, but I launched my YouTube channel in February of 2018. It clearly tells us this is a battle between good and evil, and the elites versus we the people, right? And what Q really got people to think about was, hey, guys, you need to wake up to what the globalist elites are doing to control your mind. And one of it's Mockingbird Media, right? So I don't know. I want to come back to that point about Trump can't do anything right with Putin, right? What's your thoughts on the Mockingbird Media and how they're handling this specific situation?
Well, I'm going to take it to a broader spectrum. Let me give you the linchpin to controlling the world. The linchpin to controlling the whole world, which relates to this issue and every other issue we face, is that the global financial elite want to create division between all nations, all races, all people, everybody, and what they want to do is drive us into war and drive us into financial collapse, cause us to go into a central bank, which Stalin said is 90% of communism. And basically now they've done that, and now what they want to do is collapse the United States of America. So here's what happens. You've got a situation where wealth is power. So basically they say he who controls money controls the world. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. He who controls manufacturing converts that into wealth and then controls the world. And so not only do they control the media, but they control all the spheres of influence. That means they control what? The banks. It means they control the corporations. It means they control the media. It means they control the school system, everything. There's 8 different spheres. It means they control the military industrial complex. And so all of that is controlled and manipulated, and they just look at it and say, which one of those pieces do we want to leverage today? And so all of that is being leveraged against the United States, and the people are being brainwashed. Like I say, here's what they do. They give us, to keep us with our eyes closed and in the dark, they give us a piece of truth. Fox does this a lot. And then they'll give you half-truth. And then once they got you hooked, they'll give you a complete lie. And so now you don't know what to do. They've got you so confused, and that's where they want us. They want us confused. So what God told me, and I'm sure he's told you the same thing, we're coming into a period where the whistleblowers are going to come out, and where we're going to get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's going to open people's eyes. And when we do, the divisions are going to stop. We're going to stand up, and we're going to win this battle, because there are way, way, way more of us than there are of them. And all we have to do is stand up. And the best example I can give of that is how India got their freedom, where we were fighting the Revolutionary War and dying. They just rallied around one man, Gandhi. We've got a man, Donald Trump. And they said, we're not going to participate in the economic system of England. England buckled, and they got their freedom. So basically, it's all about money. Money is the lever, is the power that allows them to do whatever they want to do. And in this instance, I agree with you. They're brainwashing us, and they're keeping the truth from us, so that it's just all kinds of misinformation. I don't know if that answers your comment or your question, but hopefully it does.
Yeah, and so what's interesting there, and I love these conversations, is that I've been teaching on the seven mountains of influence for the last 7 or 8 years, right? Lance Wallnau talks about seven. You mentioned eight, so I'd love to reconcile that at some point in time. But
Well,
it's
the
really
eighth one
interesting.
in my mind is the
Yeah.
military industrial complex.
Okay.
I believe it's like Eisenhower said, we have to look at the military industrial complex. And they, believe it or not, are our enemy, just like all those other areas are. And so where does our money go? It goes out the door to fight all those wars, to break us, to drive
Mhm.
us into bankruptcy. And so I'm aware of the seven spheres of influence, but I'm of the opinion there's an eighth.
Okay, okay. So the one that would answer my question then is it's a military industrial complex. You're saying that, which
Mhm.
which I would have put in the government, but now but it's bigger than that. It's uglier than that, right? It's an international military industrial complex, not just a U.S. one. Correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's when Trump wrestles portions of that away. It really devastates them because it's the one that's the most powerful, right? And
Here, let me give you an example of what's going on. History repeats itself. So let's go back to the assassination of Kennedy. Why did they kill Kennedy?
Mhm.
He messed up three of those power sources. What is he going to do? He issued silver certificates that was going to do what? Take us out from under the Fed.
Right.
So he ruffled the feathers of the global financial elite and the bankers, right? And to a degree, the corporations. Then he refused to send more boots on the ground to Vietnam. That was the military industrial complex. And then he said, I know what's going on with our three-letter agencies, because basically when we went into World War II, we had to have a spy network and we didn't have one. So we adopted the spy network that the Council on Foreign Relations had, who is our enemy, who basically states openly they are against open borders, they want closed borders, and they want a one world government. So that was the inception of our three-letter agencies. And when we get into talking about um, current situations that are going on with the election theft, you couldn't do it if we didn't have that last piece. And what do I mean by that? You got 17, or did have at one time, 17 intelligence agencies. How much easier is it to control us if they combine them in one, which is what happened when 9/11 hit with the Patriot Act. And the history behind that Patriot Act is something most people don't know. That we had a verbal, open discussion between the Democrats and Republicans to negotiate that Patriot Act, but at 3:45 in the morning it was pulled, and one written by the puppets who were puppeting Bush was laid on the table, and it was modeled after the Enabling Act that Hitler passed when he came to power. And what it did is it basically combined all of the intelligence agencies, created the biggest spy network in the world, spying on who? On us. And that gave them the control to do the things in secret that they need to do to control us. And without that, they couldn't have even had the Russiagate, because they wouldn't have been able to take over 17 different entities. So I hope that didn't take you too off course.
No, no, because that's important. Is a 9/11? I asked people if you really want to just at dinner the other day. I asked some friends, well, how many towers do you think fell on uh, on 9/11? And they're embarrassed to answer and go, well, obviously the two, right? Because then that kind of helps me know that they're just not awake, because the most important tower that fell was Tower 7. There was three that fell, right? And my audience knows that really well, and there was a reason for that. Yeah, and one of the major reasons this whole false flag of 9/11 happened was to get to the Patriot Act so they could consolidate, and that really it was the DNI,
Mhm.
wasn't it? Part of that is getting the DNI and the overlay of the 17, or who's the head of the 17 intelligence agency? Is it not DNI Tulsi Gabbard now? And was Clapper before that?
Yes, now it
Yeah,
is. Yeah, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So just maybe I'll interject one more thing, and then let's let you take us to a different topic. I worked in construction going through college,
Right.
and I worked with something called thermite, which is the non-explosive version of what they do to take buildings down. So I knew the second that those towers came down, no steel building had ever fallen by a fire. Simply doesn't get hot enough. So the two towers came down from thermite, and guess what? The towers were closed weeks before, and all the cameras were off. They were closed for an upgrade of the fiber optic system. And then you were hinting at something very important. They were supposed to have more damage done to Tower 7 than they did, but it looked awful suspicious when Larry Silverstein said, there's been so much death, just pull it. That's code word for basically pull the plug and bring it down by controlled demolition. And as you know, it had gold in it, and it had all kinds of white collar crimes that were housed in there, and all that information was gone. So this was, and then the overarching story behind that, it was to create the war in the Middle East with Iraq. And basically the something called PMAC had been written 2 years before, which was the entire plan for that war. So that was one of the central false flag events that are inflicted on us by the global financial elite. And they virtually every war that we've been in my lifetime has been orchestrated not by the conflict, the people in the conflict, but by the global financial elite puppeting us. So let's let you take me wherever else you want to go. And we kind of close on that topic.
It's hard to touch on these without getting your opinion on a few things, because as you talk about that, another theory is that the Nahon Nassara information and was housed in Tower 7 too. Do you think that has any truth to it?
I don't know if it was housed there, but I think that it was, if Nassara wasn't already conceived, which I think it was basically what Kennedy was doing when he was taking us out of the Fed and putting us on. I think what it did is it made the recognition that all of the agencies of the government had been taken over, and all that was left was our hope was the military. And so I think that takes us to the day with Trump. And I think Trump was solicited to come in as the president because of his branding, and he was brought in by some 200 generals. And so what we've been fighting is a military engagement. We have been in war, in a fifth generation war, probably ever since 9/11.
Yes. And that's General Flynn has a new book out, or that he got out, or last year was all the fifth generation warfare, talking about how AI is going to be used. So that's exciting stuff. Another topic comes around Tulsi Gabbard. We just talked about the DNI, and now that really backfires on when now the White Hats take control of this DNI, and they take control of the FBI and the DOJ. And so now, what do you think? Because now she's done criminal referrals, and the Democrats are saying, and the left media saying, "Oh, that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. It's a referral."
Oh, I think it means a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go down here and grab something off of my computer. You may think this doesn't relate, but it does. Mm-hmm. We're in a fight for freedom. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And you can't have freedom if you don't have these three simple things that relate to everything we're talking about today. You have to have honest elections. Well, what Tulsi Gabbard's talking about is we didn't have an honest election. The election was stolen. And then when we get into Act Blue, we find out that not only one election was stolen, but basically there were 72 elections around the world that were stolen. So you have to have honest elections. You have to have sovereign borders, and you have to have sovereign currency. So the control mechanisms that are controlling all the topics we're talking about today are those three things, and they keep coming up over and over and over again. They have to control them if they're ultimately going to control us. So I think I've been saying all along, the key to getting back our freedom for the United States and for the rest of the world is to have the world understand we do not have sovereignty. We don't have sovereignty over our borders. We don't have sovereignty over our currency. We don't have sovereignty over our elections. And it's the elections that are going to wake the people up. When we find out that we have had nothing to do with what happens to this country, we came here because we wanted what? We wanted the right to basically have a say in our government. And when they find out that we don't have it, I think that's when the people wake up. And so if we break into what's going on, I think we go back to the Russiagate situation, and we have to find out where all this broke. And it actually started with Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton was running, and basically her campaign, even though they had already decided that she was going to be the president, and she had been selected and groomed and was going to be put in office, her past was catching up to her. She had Watergate. She had She had Benghazi. She had all suspicions of people who had died. She had all kinds of things going against her. And so basically, she then was right in the middle of what, 32,000 missing emails. And so to deflect from that, so that she had a chance to win this election and have people think that there was some credibility to it, she had to concoct the Russiagate story in order to basically put the focus off of her onto Donald Trump. So that's where this whole thing started. And then we kick in more recently to Tulsi. But before I go any further, let me stop there and see if you got any comments on that first piece of what happened. And none of that, remember, would have happened if it hadn't gone all the way back to what happened when we joined all of those services together, all the intelligence services.
Yeah.
So that's where it started with Hillary Clinton. Now, do you want me to go into what Tulsi is talking about?
Well, what's interesting about that, I just want to kind of circle back, because what I love about, we grew up in two different worlds, right? I grew up waking up through the Q drops. You go through a completely different route. And so Q talks about the 16-year plan to destroy America, 8 years of Obama and 8 years of Hillary. And then all of a sudden that got disrupted in 2016, right? So as you talk about this, it's just intriguing how your insight and all your research is intersecting with my world of knowledge that all these anons, all these these researchers have been telling us, right, about the 16-year plan to destroy America. And you're basically saying that Hillary Clinton's was to come and put that nail in the coffin, right? Isn't that kind of where you're going with that?
That's right. Well, the truth will set us free. So basically what was happening with Hillary is what they do and have done. And here's something, maybe you haven't gone this far back in history, but I've done shows that show you that we haven't had an honest election in America for over 100 years. It began with McKinley. With McKinley, here's what happened. There was McKinley and William Jennings Bryan running for president, and McKinley was for big business, and Bryan was against. And so Rockefeller, Carnegie, and J.P. Morgan all got together and said, "Oh my God, oh my God! If we don't get McKinley elected, our dynasties are going to fall apart." So they took all their money and all their influence and they put it behind McKinley and they got him elected. And that's what I call a tipping point. At that point, they realized that they had the money and the power and the influence to select and groom and place into office anybody they wanted to. A president, a congressman, a senator, a judge, a head of a bank, the head of a corporation. And that was where basically we lost our first election. And I've got a whole hour-long presentations that show you that other than Reagan and other than Trump, every president since that time has been selected, groomed, and placed in the office, but to not represent the people of the United States, but to represent the global financial elite. And then let's go to one of them in particular, because we were talking about 9/11. So that was Bush. And what did Bush say? Remember, he was part of Skull and Bones, and his father, Prescott, was involved in some shenanigans in World War II with Hitler. And so basically, what does he say? The Constitution is just a goddamn piece of paper. And what did Kissinger say?
Wow.
The illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional, it takes us just a little bit longer. So that's what we're facing. That's what we're up against. We're up against just constant push, push, push. So what they do is they push. And then when we start to resist, they back off. And then they push. And then they back off. But when we go to what you were talking about, what happened is they were nearing the point where they were ready to say, America's done. America is on death ground. It can't be resuscitated. It's financially collapsed. The people are giving up hope. We win. America falls. The whole world falls. Well, that broke their rhythm. And then they really had to go and do what we're talking about here with Tulsi Gabbard. They had to step in and they had to do something. So we'll go back to that scenario for a second, then I'll be quiet and see where else you want to go. So now what happens is Trump wins, just like you said, and they didn't expect that. And so when that happened, what did Obama do? He called an emergency meeting, called all of his inner circle in, and he said, we got to change the narrative. Up until now, all of the three-letter agencies, all the media had been saying that Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to meaningfully inflict themselves into our election. And I'll add one other thing. If you really understood what was going on, they wouldn't have done it even if they could have. And here's why: because they knew all the scandals around Hillary. Trump had just come into the political arena, and he didn't have that much dirt that they could have gotten on him, except for, his social life. And so Hillary
Right.
had a medical condition that could have basically been exposed and shown that she really wasn't fit for the office. And she had all those scandals. And so what Russia really would have rather done is sat back, done nothing, put their hands up, let Hillary get in, and then puppet her. So that whole scenario is ridiculous if you know what's really going on. And so now this moves us to where all of a sudden Trump is elected, and Obama says, we got to change the narrative. So it's no longer the Russians had neither the intent or the capability to interfere with the election, but is set down and let's manufacture a story that says Donald Trump colluded with the Russians to basically steal this election. And now, if you know your history, here's something that makes that from the very inception questionable. Russia has been our friend over a long period of time. When we were in the Civil War, Russia came in, and England was going to come in on the side of the South, and they said, if you go on the side of the South, we'll come in on the side of the North. And before that, Russia is first and foremost against globalization. They want to be an autonomous nation. And so we've had 3 attempts before we finally got the United Nations. And on the first attempt, it was Russia that blocked it. And that's what led to the Bolshevik Revolution and killing of the Tsar and all of his family. So you have to look at what we think are alliances between nations. No, it's only conveniences. Basically, Russia is an anti-globalist. Trump is an anti-globalist, but China is a globalist. So I'm going to take you back through one little piece. We're going to jump forward to Carter. And at that point, the global elite felt America was getting too strong. And if they were going to get their goal and get their timeline, they needed to cede power away from the United States and cede it to England. And so what they said is they wanted to create a super capitalist communist economy, the meaning it had the innovation of capitalism, but the control of communism. And so they used Carter to basically bring China into the World Trade Organization and give them preferential trading agreements. And basically that's where we started bleeding out and going deep into debt. And we were actually funding the growth of our enemy. Now here's what's happened. Now what's happened is the global elite are looking at China and say, oh my God, we made a worse nightmare than we had with America, because now China has actually gotten so strong that they want to take the whole Chiquita. And so basically, they're the global financial elite. What does Sun Tzu say? Sun Tzu says, you want to defeat somebody, you've got to know them as well as you know yourself. And then what you've got to do is not attack them at their strength, but take advantage of the mistakes that they made. So the mistake that they made here is they ceded too much power to China. And so now in some ways, China fighting them is actually helping us. China's fighting us, but basically when you get multiple people fighting against one another, chaos ensues. So to go back to what you said, they lost their momentum. And now what they had to do is push. They had to put COVID out. They had to do all these crazy things. And what's that doing? That's waking the people up, because they broke their chain. Push, pull, do it slowly over 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. But when they do everything they've done in just a period of a decade, then people say, gosh, we're enslaved. And so now the people are waking up. And what we have to do first is get control of our election process. And when that happens, then I think the whistleblowers, they're already coming out because they can see that that's about to happen. And so now we're just going to get deluge after deluge of the truth. And finally, the people are going to stand up. And so what we've got to manage as we go into that is we've got to manage the narrative. That's where you and I and all the other podcasters out there are important, because in most every revolt that happens, the people end up worse off than they were before they started the revolt. So what we have to do is, so Sun Tzu would put it like this: before you're going to attack an enemy, you have to discredit them. And isn't that what they're trying to do to Donald Trump, what they do to us? Well, that's what, with all these whistleblowers, we're going to do to them.
Amen.
And so when their narrative no longer rings true, then we unite and we stand together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and the power comes to us and seeds from them. So let me stop and let you take me wherever you want to go, Rick.
Yeah, I almost have to come back to the stolen elections since for 100 years. so, because I know as we studied with Patrick Byrne and John 107, who's been on the show, that they've been stealing them with the machines as one of their tools since 2009 and 2004 in Venezuela, and then 2009 the
Hmm.
CIA has come in and basically they now have taken over and put their criminals in our lowest level school boards all the way to the state level to the federal level now and so take me back a little bit on just how they number
Yeah.
one two things that just kind of come to question what you just said there I thought were really interesting
Okay.
was
They don't
Reagan
steal
was
the elections.
Reagan was an exception, and how were they still in the elections before then? It's who counts the votes, right? It's not who votes.
They weren't stealing them in the way they do now. What happens now? Let's go to Smartmatic. Let's first tell you what they're doing today. So
Mm-hmm.
what we found out with Act Blue, which is now being released, is basically Venezuela, who's a communist country ruled by the cartels, created Smartmatic, and they had I'm not technical, so I can't explain this in very good terms, but they had a program embedded in the Smartmatic systems so that they could change what was in the system,
With a
and they could
virtual
flip votes,
machine. Yeah,
and
the
it
technology is a
couldn't be
virtual
found.
machine.
All right.
Yeah. And it
So
goes
we
away.
didn't
Boop.
have that
Yeah.
technology back then. But what did they have? They had power. They had leverage. They put these people. They groomed them. They sent them to the best schools. They gave them. They financed them. So they saw to it that the candidate that they want got superior financing. And then here's something else they did. Since they didn't have the sophistication that we have today, most people don't know that they usually backed more than one party. So they'd usually back a Democrat, they'd usually back the leading Democrat, the leading Republican, so that no matter which
Amen.
party won, they got what they wanted. And
Yeah.
then basically they just manipulated the minds of the people. And then yes, there was some shenanigans that happened on the day of the election and so on and so forth. But basically it was the exertion of power. So they used the corporations. They basically brought in massive amounts of money. They used the media. So before we even go to vote, that over this term of the cycle of an election, we're constantly bombarded. We're told nothing but a string of lies. If you looked at the last election, basically Trump was supposed to lose again. He was supposed to lose to Kamala, a woman who never was probably the most unpopular politician in my lifetime, but he was supposed to lose to her. And what did all the polls say? Oh, Trump's in trouble. Trump's trailing behind her. So they psychologically now are saying, well, don't go vote because Trump's going to lose. So they use all kinds of brainwashing and all kinds of things. It wasn't as sophisticated. That's why they had to have different people. I'll take you through one or two of these presidents and how you really look at it and see were they elected for the people or were they elected for the global financial elite, was to see what the crowning achievement of that president, what was it? So let's go to the next one in the line, which is Wilson. And what did Wilson inflict us with? He inflicted us in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act, which is to put us back under the central bank, which Stalin says is to give us 90% of communizing a nation. And so basically, what happened? They used their power, and the Titanic happened to have sunk coincidentally with the three men on it who were the most verbal, vocal people who were against the Central Reserve. And then we go on to Roosevelt. And Roosevelt, well, here's what happened. The global financial elite came to America and said, you need to be in this war. And guess what? It will make you phenomenally wealthy because you're going to not be in the main theater of war. You'll be able to be intact. You'll be able to sell all these armaments and make trillions of dollars. And when the war is over, you'll be able to rebuild, i.e., the Halliburtons and stuff of the world, and everybody else will be in absolute chaos. And so they knew up front they were going to make the United States of America the world's reserve currency because nobody else in the world was going to have manufactured intact or the economy intact. So all of that was planned. So they came to Roosevelt and said, this can be yours on a silver platter. All you got to do is get us into war and make it look like we didn't start it, make it look like Japan was the aggressor. And so he had a strategy that says, let's do pop-ups into the war zone and see if the Japanese will attack us. Let's cut off their steel, let's cut off their oil, and then let's put the Seventh Fleet within striking distance. So he went to 3 different admirals who turned him down. Finally, he got an admiral who was greedy enough, said, I'll park him there, and we lost 3,000 men. So I could go on through the whole litany, but then I think we get too far off of our conversation for today. But basically, each one of those men, there's a story that you can tell that tells you that they were not representing the people of America. They were representing the global financial elite.
Yeah, and so just real quickly,
So I'll go wherever you want to go from here.
Yeah, so what about the Reagan blip? Any thoughts on how in the heck he got in? And I know he was shot for trying to go against him, but any idea how he got in?
Yeah, they underestimated him and they underestimated Trump. He's just a B actor. He's never been in politics. Oh, so they didn't think he'd get in California, but he did, but he's still a B actor. So basically, look at what happened with Trump. Let's go forward. And how did he get in first? When he finally got in, they underestimated him. He's just a playboy. He's got all kinds of skeletons in his closet. We can basically just destroy his personality. And so basically they were, what did Sun Tzu say? You win by looking at the enemy's mistakes. They underestimated those 2 men. God chose them for a reason. And God knew that they could slip in under the cracks.
Right.
But all the rest, if you look at what they've done, you look at Carter. Carter took us directly into the arms of China and basically created the only real enemy that we have today. They're the only ones that have the strength to really do any real harm to the United States. If you look at Russia, its GDP is 2.7 trillion. Ours is 27.7 trillion. And they basically, as I said, have Dutch disease. They got an Achilles heel that we can shut them down within a second as our oil and gas dependency. So basically, who was in charge of all the shenanigans all the way through since Carter? It's been China, 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 China. They've taken our money and they bought all the spheres of influence and used it to have people within the United States basically do whatever they could to collapse our government.
Yeah, they bought Hollywood, and they actually, in addition, just stole elections through Serbia, right? And one thing you talked at the very beginning that just kind of brings us all around is they stole the manufacturing, right? That the elites moved the manufacturing to China, and so that comes back to the whole economy questions, right? What the state of the economy, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So basically, God gives me these formulas. He's had me doing this for 57 years. And if you get enough information in your head, he said, I'm going to give you enough information that you'll always be able to look to the past for something that's significant, to the present, and basically be able to look then and project into the future because you'll have insights that others don't have. So if we look at the economy, here's what makes a strong economy, and then I'll tell you how they're collapsing it. You have to have natural resources. So that's something that's very important. That's why we went out and we built our transcontinental railroad, and then we went against England, just like Trump is doing now with tariffs. And we said, we're going to put a 50% tariff on you. And so basically we got control of our own economy by basically having natural resources. We developed the Industrial Revolution. So that's basically making goods and then sell it, and that's the money. So basically, who controls money controls the world. And now, if you want to look at it from the bigger picture from today, if we're going to change everything and implode everything, then we have to have a financial collapse, complete collapse. That takes us to the reset. And so the reset basically started with what? In 2019 with COVID, when the whole world was shut down and every nation in the world printed more money than in many instances had printed in 100 years. And what did that do? That took that fiat debt system all the way up to where people could not afford. The pain on the average American and the average person in the world was horrible. And that led us to the fact that there absolutely was going to be a financial collapse. So now the war was, who's going to win? The good guys are the bad guys.
Amen.
And thank God, God gave us Trump. So now to bring that down, what has to happen? Two things. You have to deglobalize, because what have we been talking about before? What the elite used was consolidation of power, right? They basically had a one world government, a one world religion they were pushing for. They had all the national intelligence agencies pulled together. They controlled the 8 spheres of influence. So we have to undo that package and separate everything. And so basically, how do you do that? You have deglobalization. And what's your principal target there of the United States? You want to do just what Trump did in his first term. You want to put tariffs on China and begin to financially collapse them and force a situation which came out of COVID, where the world realizes it's too dangerous to have too much of the manufacturing done by one nation. And now China is an absolute free fall, and they're losing their manufacturing, which means they're losing their GDP, which means that the economy is not stable, which means the people are on the brink of revolt. And so that's deglobalization. And then what do you have to have? So all the nations of the world say, we don't want to be controlled by China. We don't want to have corporations controlling the necessities of life and the oil and the food and the water and all of that. But neither do they want to be overly controlled by the United States. So that's where the global elite come in and are attempting to accelerate the collapse of the United States using BRICS and using the strategy to drive us into wars and bleed us out so that we have an economic collapse and can't be resuscitated. So that takes us into the genius of the man named Trump. So basically, what did he do that relates to the events of this past couple of weeks? He negotiated the deal with India, which relates to China, because to get that deal, what did India have to do? They had to agree not to sell oil, not to buy oil from Russia, and they had to agree to leave BRICS. And other than China, they're the most significant person in that group. And people think everybody in there is against the United States. No, most of the world wants America to win this. They're for America. They don't want to be under communism. They know that if America loses, they lose their freedom. So those nations are there for individual reasons. What they really want is just sovereignty. They want to be sovereign. They want their own currencies. Amen. And so how is this all going to come down? I can tell you, Trump is leveraging the world with his strategy on tariffs. And that's what he's doing to control these wars. He's now negotiated peace agreements with 6 different nations, and now he's involved in Israel and Iran, and he's involved in Russia and Ukraine, and it's all being leveraged by trade, by the amount of money that we have and how we can control other nations. So basically, what's going to come out of this is he recognizes that the United States is not going to come out of this as the sole reserve currency. We were the sole reserve currency after World War II when we came out of Bretton Woods. But now what's going to happen is we're going to have a basket of currencies. So Trump's goal is to come out as the primary reserve currency. And what his goal is to control 60% of the world's trade in US dollars. And how's he going to do it? He understands that the world is going digital. He understands it's going to be quantum computing and blockchain and XRP and XLM and stable coins. And he's announced that America is going to be what? The crypto capital of the world. And how does that help us? Because we have the leverage that we have with our manufacturing, because now we're taking back our first position. We're going to be number 1 manufacturing entity in the world again as China falls. Now it's going to go to a multitude of nations, but we're going to get back that strength and that leverage there. And then basically we're in a position to drive. And so now what happens is America just stands up and says, we recognize something. This is Trump's genius. If we are strong, the people, if we at the end of all of this go on gold standard ourselves, which we're going to do, then everybody is going to be trading digitally. And if we're the digital capital of the world, now America has put its stake in the ground and survived this financial reset and come out in the opportunity position to be the first world nation of the world and to lead the world. So here's what it did. When we became the wealthiest nation in the world, God says we never do anything unless there's a foreshadow from the history. So following the Civil War, we were bankrupt, completely bankrupt. And we put tariffs on England, We developed the Transcontinental Railroad. We developed the Industrial Revolution. And then we did something that most Americans don't know. We created a completely new economic system called the American economic system. And instead of hoarding, we shared. And of it, it was said, this was under Lincoln. The American economic system was the only system in the world that ever had the tendency to equalize and elevate the condition of all mankind around the world. So we're going to have a second Bretton Woods. America is going to come out of it, not the sole reserve currency, but the principal reserve currency. And basically, we're going to basically lead the world into a period of freedom and prosperity. And the world is rooting for us.
Woo!
And why do I say that? I say because J.C. Ping said, Trump, you screwed up. He says, with what you're doing with these tariffs, he said, all the nations of the world are going to turn against you. And one by one, they raised their said, we'll negotiate, we'll negotiate,
Right.
we'll negotiate. And they left China, and America is in the catbird seat now. So Trump is a genius, and the team, the people behind him are geniuses, but we have an advantage that nobody else has. We have God on our side. And so he's not lost a war.
We have God on our
side. So that's how we're positioned.
Right. But if you just think about the amount of debt we're in, one way to get out of that is to purposely hyperinflate the fiat dollar and move to a different type of dollar, right? And so do you think there's a coming financial collapse, and what's that really mean?
Yep, here's what's happening. You know that big, beautiful bill they talked about? Now, we're on a topic that we didn't have on this list today, but it relates to what you just said. So they're saying that's going to drive us into debt. Trump's going to add $5 trillion to the national debt. Well, let me give you another little history example. When we went into, I'm going to say it a different way. When Carter took China into the World Trade Organization, we had a national debt of $660 billion, not even $1 trillion, and then it doubled and tripled with every administration until you got to Obama, and it was $10 trillion that he added to the debt. And there was more debt than all of the 43 presidents who preceded him. So they're saying, oh my God, Trump's going to add $5 trillion. Well, look at this, folks. I don't have to go to a long dissertation here. He leveraged the world, and the world came to him and said within a matter of weeks, we are committing $10 trillion to the United States to build new factories. And that means more GDP, and that means a turnaround of the U.S. economy, and that means America comes out of its debt burden, and America then strong can do what it was doing after the Civil War. We can help other nations, but we can't help them unless we are strong. And so now what's another quiver, arrow in the quiver that Donald Trump has? Gold is selling for over $3,000 an ounce right now, but it's on the Treasury books at $42. $42. So one of the things he's going to do is revalue gold. And I don't know to what, maybe 4,000, 5,000, I don't know what. But now that's discretionary money. We got the money coming in from the tariffs. We got the money coming in once the factories are built from now a more vibrant economy with a growing GDP, and then we can take all that money from the revaluation of our gold without ever relinquishing 1 ounce of gold, and probably have enough money to either pay off or nearly pay off our $37 trillion national debt. Now that takes us into something else that Trump is doing.
Hey, let me back up there just for a second, Larry. What's the 47? I haven't ever heard of that. I know because right now you go to the silver price chart, it's 3,200 or whatever, right? Silver's at 37.80 or something like that. So what you're saying? Gold is at 47 or something like that. What was that?
No, gold is listed on the Treasury books, on our books, at $42 an ounce.
Really?
He's going to value.
Why is that?
Well, the answer is real simple. Gold and silver have to be suppressed if you were going to have a fiat system. If gold was 4,000, 5,000, and silver was 500 or 600, then their fiat system doesn't work. So you have to press gold and silver. And so basically, Trump is going to revalue it. He's turning the tables over on it, just like Christ turned all the tables over in the temple. And now that money can be used to get rid of our debt. And then what's another thing he's doing? But to basically Trump is, I mean, it's an ingenious plan. So that's going to get us out. And then why is he going against the Fed, the head of the Fed? He's told us we're going to go from a centralized banking system to a decentralized banking system, right? That means we're getting out of the Fed. He's given us a cue, and now what's he going to do that? So we have $37 trillion national debt. 1/3 of that is due to be refinanced this year. That's almost $12 trillion. America is so far into debt that we cannot possibly refinance that $12 trillion at the high interest rates that we're at now. So he has to get Jerome Powell out, has to get us out from under the central bank, and has to basically dramatically reduce the interest rates so that he can refinance that debt until he can manage to pay it off. And he's put the mechanisms into place to do it by bringing all of that manufacturing money in, by basically creating a higher GDP, and by basically refinancing the gold. And America, in very short order, will be, I think, debt-free. And then another thing that's going to affect the economy in a different way is he staged everything in his first term for a lot of what he's doing right now. So he got the Chevron deal pushed through with the Supreme Court, which said that we now have access to some 6,000 patents. And that was crucial because every time somebody tried to come in and tried to do anything with energy, they were stopped. When they tried to do anything with gold, they were stopped. But now if we're going to go to this new system, our demand for energy is going to double or triple. So all of a sudden, they're going to give us access to all these new amazing technologies. And most of them were invented by the United States of America and then suppressed during the Industrial Revolution. And so we're going to get access to that technology. And just like America innovated itself out of a financial collapse following the Civil War, we're not only going to innovate ourselves out of a near financial collapse, but we're going to basically just do what we just did before, share that technology with the world and everybody in the world. Here's where we're going. Here's where this whole thing comes to an end. And that is that every first world nation, that would be the United States, that would be Russia, that would be China, that would be Japan, and that would be Britain. All of our currencies are going to be devalued. And all of the second world countries' currencies are going to be raised, because when we go to a sovereign system, when we go to a system based on commodities, God's system, they're some of the wealthiest nations in the world. And so what does that do? That makes them very, very wealthy. And they're now at the table of first world countries. Everybody is at parity. And what did Eisenhower say? Is there any man, is there any woman, is there any child that doesn't understand that the principal cause of war is dramatic inequity between nations? So we're going to end the division. We're going to end the financial differentiation. We're going to come to the system that God wants, where all of his children have all of their basic needs met. And that's going to end war. And that's why what you see is the central objective of Trump is to create peace. And that's why he's engaged himself in all these peace negotiations that you see around the world. He's being directed by God to create peace so this financial reset can happen on his side of the equation and not on the bad side of the equation. And basically we can walk into peace and prosperity. And what does that do? Economic prosperity, peace and prosperity. Now that ushers in the harvest of souls, and that creates spiritual growth. And that's exactly what God wants to have happen. So let me stop and let you redirect me to anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, I know we have very little time left, but in this last bit, and this is how we ended last time, right? Just to let you guys know, we are going to be doing an exclusive on Faith and Freedom TV only broadcast to delve into the financial system collapse and what it's all going to be and the details of it every week, and just have other different topics that we talk with I don't know, something like the Blessed Crusade or something like that show. It's going to be the Liberty Crusade and Blessed to Teach together each week. Again, exclusive on Faith and Freedom TV, which you'll be able to see every Thursday. So again, make sure you go download that app or bookmark the web app. The web app's awesome. You can just go Faith and Freedom with an N, faithandfreedom.tv, and bookmark that, and then we'll be there every Thursday. And so, but people just need to know. I mean, we only have 5 minutes left, but what we talked a little bit about this at the end of last month, right? You've really got three areas that are really probably smart to invest, right? You got your precious metals, you've got currencies, and you've got crypto, right? So talk just real quickly about if somebody had 10 grand and of funds that they just got and they needed to put it in somewhere, how would you split that up? What would be your quick advice on that?
I can say that pretty quick. So before I do that, I want to give you one focus point.
Okay.
So I want people to understand what's happening and how we're going to win. So basically, I'm going to pop a graphic up on my side so that I don't miss anything in what I want to say here. All right, here's what's been going on. We are basically ending this whole saga of control of the world through fiat currency. So what happens is we've been under a progressive tax. So basically they put us under federal income tax, and they got to the point that that wasn't enough to pay for the debt that we were accumulating. So they added new taxes and more taxes and more taxes. That's a communist form of progressive taxes, and that drives the people into total submission. And that's where we're at right now. That's why this financial collapse is going to happen. And so basically we're under a tax burden that we can't handle. But when we go to the commodity-backed system, then all of a sudden everything changes and the economic system flips. And basically, we now have the opportunity to have freedom and peace and prosperity. So to answer your question, let's go to gold and silver first. So if I'm remembering back from my history, I think that historically, silver, it's taken about 50 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold. And silver is a byproduct of gold. So basically now I think it's something like 85 ounces of gold to buy an ounce of silver. But now you got to remember something. Gold is suppressed, but silver is suppressed substantially more.
Right.
And gold is just basically a shiny item that the world has said that's a store of value. But as we go into this new technological revolution where we have to have twice the amount of energy that we have, and all this technology is going to come out that all sucks up energy, that means silver becomes the king of the world. And so if I was looking and saying, I'm not a financial counselor, but if I look at the ratios and just the common sense of the use case for silver versus gold, I'm looking at this and saying God doesn't want to leave any of his children behind. So probably the best return on your money, especially if you don't have a lot of money to invest, is in silver over gold because of the use case of it and because there's less of it in the world than there is on gold. So let me just stop and see if you want to add anything.
Well, yeah, that's why I always tell people go get a free consultation from Kirk. He'll tell you the same thing and talk to you about what you can do with silver. How you can, but you want the physical silver. You don't want EFTs, right? You don't want paper that says you have silver. You want to actually have the physical silver. So, and that don't have any back end conditions. There's so many people that try to sell you silver with all these rare coins, and it's a ripoff. They make huge percentages. This is 8% in, 0% out. It's very easy, and it's Boolean, beautiful way to get in. But also, wouldn't you split that 10 grand up a little bit? Into some dong, into some crypto.
So let's talk currencies then. Yeah. So basically, people are skeptical that there's not going to be a finance. No, look what I said before. Basically, all the first world countries' currencies have to go down. The third world countries' currencies have to go up. They have to meet in the middle. That's the end game of all of this. And so now it isn't just haphazard. Here's what's happened. This has been working behind the years for scenes. So. You got right now the two currencies most likely to be revalued very, very soon are the dinar and the dong. So I'm going to talk mostly about the dong because, again, it's a lower buy-in. It means it's a lower risk. Just put a few dollars in and you might be surprised what you get. So here's what's happened. Basically, if you look at the world, manufacturing is leaving China, right? Well, where's the first place it's going to go? Geographically in proximity to nations around China. And one of the biggest recipients is Vietnam. Vietnam has modern factories. Vietnam has a growing GDP. Vietnam has a vibrant domestic market. Vietnam has a strong international market. Vietnam's economy is growing rapidly. It meets all of the requirements that say there's no reason in the world its currency should be so suppressed. And now let's look at the other side of the coin. Trump wants to lower our currency's value, right? Well, that's partly because of the reset that we have with the debt, but it's also because if our currency is cheaper, we compete better in the global market. So basically, to balance everything out, which is all about, basically the dong has to rise. The same thing with the dinar. They've done a lot of things they've rebuilt a lot of their infrastructure. They're now no longer selling crude oil. They're selling processed oil. And before all this happened, guess what the most valuable currency in the world was? It was the dong. They're one of the richest nations of the world. I think at the very peak, it took over $4 US dollars to buy one dinar. And so there's no reason those currencies should not revalue because they now have all the dynamics. And so what you want when you revalue them is it's basically what happens at Bretton Woods. The whole world had to revalue so that they could trade across the board. And to do that, they had to have stable currencies. So basically, we can't have a whole flotilla of currencies in the world of countries whose currencies are going like that. And so basically, we're creating stability within those nations. They meet certain criteria. And then once they do, they're candidates to have their currencies revalued. That's where the dong and the dinar are right now. The only reason I focus on the dong versus the dinar is because people have been buying the dinar, and it's more expensive now. So when it revalues, I have to say it will revalue higher than the dinar, than the dong. But I think for the average person, I always say, take the minimum amount of risk. So that's the currency. So where do you want to go from here? So that's two of the pieces.
So I think we're pretty much out of time, but we're going to be digging details next week. Again, only on the Faith and Freedom channel. So make sure that you are following that. I'll be announcing the time later, but I'll be going live on the 24/7 channel and be available as a video on demand. Go ahead, Larry.
I got one last comment to make. When I first did my show on that, I got all kinds of stuff. They said, you never told us where we can buy the dong. So basically, if you're lucky, you can find a local bank. If you can't, you can go to a currency exchange, but they'll charge you more. And if you can't do that because you live out in the rural areas, there's an exchange called XX, capital X, changeofamerica.com, and you can go there and buy it. Now, the cheapest place is if you can find a local bank, but my telling you that doesn't help you at all unless I tell you someplace where you can go and buy it. So there we go, Rick.
Yeah, exactly. And I showed you guys that last time too. I went to buy some, but it was like you do have to give your driver's license and stuff like that, just like a bank. So anyway, just FYI, that was one thing that kept me from doing it in the short term. But I do think getting some dong, my wife has some, so but boy, guys, it's smart to do that. But hey, we're out of time, but I just need to do a turbo prayer for you real quickly. Anything specific that comes up your health we prayed for last month, and anything else?
Well, the health is the only issue I have. God, and even that I'm not worried about. God made a promise. He promised nothing would happen to me until I finished my assignment. And in truth, it's just now really starting because people are only now ready to really pay attention because things are critical. So that's my only wish.
All right. We're supposed to be starting praise and prayer right now. So I'm just going to do a turbo prayer real quick, and then we'll move over.
Okay.
Make sure you go to the Word and Worship channel. It's only on Rumble. Word with the N, Worship is the only place you'll be able to worship with us, as well as backstage on Zoom. But Larry, let me just lift you up real quick. Thank you so much. Lord, what a privilege to have somebody that has so much knowledge and has done such, be prepared for such a time as this, Lord, to let people know about all these different topics and really the truth behind it. But I just love, Lord, that you've intersected our research with his, more verification that the best is yet to come. Lord, I just pray you amplify Larry's voice like never before, not just Faith and Freedom TV, but many other places, Lord, and allow other people to know the truth. And the truth will set you free, as Larry was saying. I just pray the refreshing of the Holy Spirit comes across him, like we talk about Acts 3:19. Times of refreshing just refreshes him as the Holy Spirit comes across him right now. Thank you, Lord, and allow him to have an awesome night's sleep and wake up with the joy of the Lord. We love you. And We ask for your blessings on everybody else who's listening to this as well. Say these things in the name of Jesus, amen. Thank you so much, Larry. And
you're welcome.
You're right.
I'll see you next time.
We'll see you next
Bye-bye.
Thursday on Faith and Freedom TV. That's the only place you'll see us go in detail on the financial collapse and the financial reset and what it really means. We're going to go into detail on that next Thursday. So God bless you all. With that, we're moving over to Faith and Freedom. So if the backstage might not unmute and saying thank you, Larry. We'll talk to you next.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Bless.
Thank you.
And we will never surrender. Christian soldiers, we are in this together. We are blessed to teach. We are neighbors, we believe. We are blessed to be free, to love our God and country.
Elitist media deceives, but Faith and Freedom TV amplifies truth. Our world-leading platform delivers news, teachings, worship, movies, and music rooted in biblical values and constitutional patriotism, inspiring faith and liberty. We inspire, equip, and amplify Christian patriots to share powerful stories of faith, family, and freedom. With live events, thousands of on-demand videos, and access on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, Android, and iOS, we're transforming culture globally for God and country. New content is coming to ignite faith. Join our mission to counter deception. Visit faithandfreedom.tv and download the Faith and Freedom TV app today.